Hi everybody, I'm Amy Burke, and today I'm going to read you a very special Sukkot story called Nightlights by Barbara Diamond Goldin, and it's illustrated by Laura Suker. And if you were little children, I would say the author, what is Barbara Diamond Goldin, and what does the author do? And the children would say, she writes the books, and then I would say, and the illustrator draws the pictures, right? So this is a PJ Library book, and here's the title page. And I'm a read and then show kind of a person. So, can't we put a real roof on it? Just this once, Daniel pleaded as he helped his father carry the boards to build the sukkah, the little hut his family put on each year for Sukkot. No, said Papa, who was hammering the boards together. There's a reason we don't have a real roof on the sukkah. But Grandpa has a cough and can't come. Just me and Naomi will be sleeping in it. And Daniel thought about the night and the sky showing through the top of the hut. Could a bear climb up through there, or a wolf? Daniel shivered. We have enough boards for the roof, Papa. That's not the point, said Papa. A sukkah is different from a house. When we're in the sukkah, we're supposed to see the sky through the roof. And if it rains, we're supposed to feel the rain. So we can remember. Papa stood back to admire the hut with its door cut on one side and a window in another. Remember what? Said Daniel. All he could remember were the scary sounds that he had heard in the sukkah last year. Grandpa sang him lullabies so that he would fall asleep, and his sister Naomi wouldn't sing him lullabies. That was for sure. We remember how our ancestors left Egypt in a hurry thousands of years ago, Papa answered, and how they wandered in the desert for 40 years and slept in temporary shelters like this one whenever they stopped for the night. Oh, said Daniel. He wondered if the ancestors were afraid too, of the dark and the night and the scary noises and the bears and the wolves. Later in Israel, Papa added, the farmers built little huts just like this one to sleep in during the wheat harvest. Daniel could tell Papa wasn't going to put a real roof on the sukkah, not even this one time. Daniel tried to forget about the holes in the roof and the bears and the wolves while the family made paper chains to hang inside the sukkah and drew pictures for the walls and pictures of the trees and holy places and the people from the Bible. Naomi tied apples to the roof with string so they could dangle in the air, and Daniel and Leah piled fat squash and yellow and orange and green squash and lumpy and crooked squash on the table in the corners of the hut. It's beautiful, said Daniel when they were all done. Even nicer than last year, said Naomi. And this year we get to sleep in it all alone. She looked at Daniel and said, unless, of course, you're too scared. Daniel stiffened his shoulders. I slept in it last year, didn't I? And Naomi snickered. Yes, with Grandpa singing you to sleep. I'm not afraid of the dark anymore, said Daniel. Not since Mama brought me a nightlight. You can't have a nightlight in a sukkah, Naomi said. There's no plug. And you think our ancestors had nightlights when they lived in their sukkot? Maybe, Daniel said. Thousands of years ago? Naomi choked back a giggle. You must be kidding. All they had was the desert, sand, and the rocks, and whatever they brought from Egypt. Besides, you'll be scared at the first noise. You'll think there's a bear or a wolf. She made a growly face at Daniel. I will not, said Daniel. Anyways, do you want to sleep out here all alone? I could, said Naomi. I'm not afraid of wolves or bears. Time for supper, called Mama from the house. I need your help. There's lots of food to bring outside. Daniel And Leah and Naomi and Mama and Papa and all of their guests in the sukkah had all their guests in the sukkah that night. They had to wear sweaters and their chairs bumped against the walls, but the air was crisp and cool and smelled sweet. The food tasted so good, and the sound of their talk and laughter bounced all around them, off of the walls and up through the corn stalks into the night sky. Daniel felt full and a little sleepy after eating so much, and he leaned back in his chair thinking of long ago, of ancestors traveling in the desert and eating and talking in their sukkot. Talking in their sukkot, too, and of the farmers too busy to go home. Daniel felt so good and so happy that he almost wasn't afraid anymore. The sukkah felt warm and cozy all around, and if he didn't look up, he could even forget the holes in the roof. Closing his eyes, he smelled the sweetness of the air, of the fruit and the spices, and he smelled the candles burning. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad sleeping in the sukkah. After dinner, Daniel helped bring all the dishes back into the house. Soon the sukkah was empty again, and the people and the food and the sounds and the light. Naomi carried out her blanket and pillow and put them in a corner of the sukkah, and she came looking for Daniel. "Are you ready?" she said. "Yes," said Daniel, even though deep down inside he really wasn't so sure. He carried out his blanket and his pillow and his teddy bear, and then he settled down next to Naomi, twisting and turning his blanket and bed on the ground. "I can't go to sleep with all of your moving around," complained Naomi. "All right," said Daniel. He closed his eyes and he tried to lay still. It wasn't quiet for long. Woo, woo, and the wind started up and it blew through the corn stalks on the roof and shook the walls. Clack, 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 creak, creak, creak. "It's just the wind," whispered Naomi. "Why are you whispering?" said Daniel. "Are you scared too?" "Of course not," she said, but her voice squeaked a little. Oof, oof, oof. Daniel sat straight up. It was hard being an ancestor in the hut, in the dark, and it was scary. "Is that a wolf?" Daniel whispered. He thought he felt Naomi shiver next to him, and he grabbed a stuffed bear. Naomi sat up too, and they listened together. "It's just a dog," she finally said, "I think," and she buried herself in her blankets, pulling them tightly around her. Daniel lay down next to her, but he didn't close his eyes. "It's spooky out here," he said. Naomi didn't answer. Naomi was asleep. Lucky Naomi, thought Daniel. Daniel lay awake, his eyes searching every corner of the hut. He began to see faces where the squash were supposed to be, and mean, lumpy, grinning faces. There was one over there in the corner, and one on the table by the door, and one pointing at him through the window. And Daniel stood up, clutching his bear. It was too hard being an ancestor, he thought about the room and the familiar shapes in its corner, and the nightlight by his bed. He missed his room. And just then, Naomi put out her hand and tugged at Daniel. "Don't go, please," she said softly. "Keep me company." "I'm too scared," he said. "Aren't you?" "A little," Naomi admitted. She was quiet for a moment, staring up at the sky through the sukkah roof. "You know, Daniel, maybe I was wrong. Maybe our ancestors did have nightlights in the desert. But you said there were no plugs." I know, but..." And Naomi held up her covers. "Slide in right next to me and look up. See? They had the first kind of nightlights." Daniel lay down next to his sister, and he looked up through the branches and the stalks, and he saw stars. Tiny, bright nightlight stars, and one gigantic nightlight moon. They were the same moon and stars the wanderers in the desert and the farmers in the fields had seen at night through their sukkah roofs. "See what I mean?" said Naomi. Uh-huh, said Daniel. He felt warm and cozy now next to Naomi. So instead of looking at the shadows or listening to the dog or the wind, Daniel and Naomi watched the lights above them, thinking of the ancestors and of the candles glowing on the sukkah tabletops. And soon they fell asleep. The end. So that again was Night Lights, a Sukkah Story by Barbara Diamond Goldin. And I made a craft. I thought about the children and how they made crafts for the sukkah. And I thought I teach first grade and of the younger grades, and it needs to be something simple. So you could have, all you really need is a string or yarn. And I put keys but at the bottom so when the wind blew it would make noise. Or you could put jingle bells or whatever you have, recycle. And you could have the children cut out leaf shapes and then punch holes in them. And for early childhood, this is a really good fine motor skill builder. And I just would have them string them on and then tie a knot. String them on, tie a knot, string them on, tie a knot, as many as you want. Tied from the sukkah, it hangs down, it's really pretty. And then something you could do is you could put their picture on it. If you have it, cut it out and glue it on there. Or you could draw a picture and then write a mitzvah, something they did good. I wrote, Amy shared her toys with her sister. And then, date it because you'll want to bring them out and remember them every year. And that is my sukkah craft. Really simple.
Hag Sameach!
Hag Sameach.